Russia then has again launched a wave of missiles and drones on Kyiv and the western Ukrainian city of Lviv. A series of blasts around the cities as air defense systems have been battling to bring them down. At least 3 people killed in Lviv as officials say historic buildings in the heart of the city were hit. We've been hearing from Ukraine's Air Force in the last hour saying in all it downed 7 missiles and 22 drones during Russia's overnight attack there. It comes just a day, of course, after Russia hit that military institute in Ukraine's central town of Poltava with 2 missiles, ballistic missiles, in fact, in the war's deadliest single attack this year, killing 50, wounding hundreds more. The stepping up of attacks seen by many as Russia's response to the Ukrainian incursion into Russia. We're going to talk to international affairs commentator Doug Herbert, who's joining me here on set. Doug, more attacks today, just after that huge attack yesterday. Clearly a pattern here, part of a larger Russian strategy, perhaps?
Yes, sadly, at this point, we can hardly say we're shocked. This is part of a much broader pattern of Russia day after day, literally almost now, obliterating with a barrage of missile and drone strikes targets across Ukraine, targets that range well beyond the so-called military targets that Russia says it exclusively pinpoints, aiming at power grids, civilian infrastructure. In the case of Lviv in western Ukraine, right, it's on the other side of the country from Poltava, which is in the east, really below Kharkiv, near the front lines in Donetsk. In the case of Lviv, the targets, there was a lot of damage to residential buildings, there was damage to schools, there was damage to medical facilities. Hardly military targets here. When I speak of a broader pattern, the pattern is very clear. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to read the runes here. You have Vladimir Putin waging a war of attrition against the much vaunted Ukrainian resilience. Ukrainians have prided them on fighting to defend their territorial integrity, their sovereignty, and they have been counting on their leaders, especially Zelensky, has been counting on and hailing the resilience of the Ukrainian people. The strategy by which you basically throw all of these missiles, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles. Remember, the missiles that hit in Poltava were ballistic missiles, supersonic speeds, traveling faster than sound. They struck literally a minute or so after the alarm sirens sounded. The cadets in the academy that was struck did not have time to scramble for shelter. It was that quick. So this is part of a clear strategy, obviously not explicitly stated by the Russian authorities, to terrorize the Ukrainian population. The Russian authorities, the Russian propaganda outlets, can say day after day that they are only targeting military infrastructure. The fact of the matter is civilians are time and again caught in the crossfire of these missile and drone barrages, which have been growing more intense lately. You know, we forget because the litany, the list of the horrors just keeps growing by the day. Early last month, July 8th, you had a Russian missile destroying Ukraine's largest children's hospital. That was in Kyiv. At the time, at least 38 people were killed in that strike. You had, before that, in January of last year, you had a Russian missile, a 2,000-pound warhead that destroyed an apartment complex in Dnipro in northern Ukraine. And, I say these things, and it's almost like they were not just yesterday's headlines, they're off the radar. We don't even talk about them anymore. It's just yet another in a long list of ongoing strikes and barrages. I guarantee you this Poltava strike, few weeks' time, it will be something merely a blip on the radar, something that people barely remember, aren't really talking about. But it underscores what I said, that war of attrition against Russian resilience and a war strategy by which Vladimir Putin is playing the clock and betting on the fact that the West is going to lose interest and lose the will and the political commitment to continue coming to Ukraine's defense.
Just as you're talking there, we're just getting information coming in for us, in fact, from Ukraine's energy ministry, saying Russia attacked energy facilities in 6 Ukrainian regions in the past 24 hours. That's just coming into us from Ukraine. Yeah. Doug, I mean, a familiar plea back from this from Volodymyr Zelensky, following this for more air defense. He's been going on about this for months now. Is anyone actually listening, though?
Sure. The West is listening. The problem is, even if they had the will, to keep pace with the Russian bombardment. They don't literally have the capacity right now to answer every one of Volodymyr Zelensky's pleas, his wish list. Look, the most important element of the Ukrainians' defense, if you will, are the Patriot missile systems, these batteries, which literally are the most sophisticated air defense batteries in the U.S. arsenal. There's a very limited supply. They're very expensive to make. They take time to produce, which is the reason there's so few of them. Ukraine only has a handful of them. The U.S. has given about 2, Germany a couple more, Romania has just flagged a Patriot defense system. 4 or 5 right now at most is what Ukraine has. It said it needed at least 2 to defend Kharkiv back a few months back, Zelensky was saying. These are the only things that can knock those ballistic missiles out of the sky. So Zelensky's skies are open, no match for the supremacy of Russian Air Force and all of that, the planes. Ukraine lost one of its precious F-16s, one of a half a dozen of them in a recent crash, still being investigated what happened there. He is pleading more weapons, more air defense, and also the permission, we've talked about this before, Stuart, the permission to use those missiles for long-range strikes deep within Russia at military targets within Russia. Not civilian infrastructure, legitimate military targets. Hit the targets from which the Ukrainians say the Russians are launching the types of missiles that are causing this horrific damage in Ukraine. Right now, effectively, what the Ukrainian military is saying is, the West has done an amazing job. Thank you so much for your support. We cannot be more appreciative, but we, as of now, are essentially still fighting with one hand tied behind our backs because we do not have the air defense capacity that we need, and we do not have the permission and the authority to use the weapons in the way we need to use them in order to more effectively fight back against these ongoing barrages of missiles and drones.
And finally, Doug, that's what Volodymyr Zelensky's been up to. What about Vladimir Putin? Where is he in all of this?
Silent. He's not saying anything. He doesn't have to say anything. The war strategy is set. His silence is a measure of Vladimir Putin's not unblinking determination to meet what he calls all the strategies of what he still calls the strategic military operation, not the war. And that is basically taking control of all of Donetsk, and a lot of people suspect ultimately causing the fall of the Ukrainian government and taking control of Ukraine, because he doesn't consider Ukraine a legitimate state. Is he bowed? Is he hesitating because of the Kursk incursion, which is now almost a month old? It was launched on August 6th. Ukrainians have taken, I think, 1,100 square kilometers of territory, or claiming to. Not really. Yeah, sure, he's redeployed some forces from within Russia, some lower combat forces from the Ukrainian front, but the most highly effective special forces, those fighting on the front lines in eastern Donetsk, those most notably who are making that push towards Pokrovsk, a strategic transport hub that the Russians keep saying that is their next objective. He hasn't deployed forces from those regions. He is going forward as ever. He is not really changing his strategy, and he has also signaled that he is determined as ever to push this war to its conclusion, a conclusion which he says will have only one inevitable ending, and that is Russia triumphant.